Hello people of the internet, and welcome to Read Instead Autism Acceptance Day 18. Just imagine the right number. Yeah. It's day 18, obviously. And as a rare occurrence, it is actually the 18th when I'm filming this. But anyway, let's actually get to the topic. I'm just avoiding trying to talk about the topic because it is giving me anxiety. I literally wrote that on my... You can't see it. I wrote that on my script. This video is giving me anxiety. Well, okay, let's do it anyway. So, I've talked in the same month, but it seems like a really long time ago, but to me at least. I've talked about the concept of gender, and specifically have sort of tried in a more or less rational way, which may or may not have come across that way, about the concept of Autigender and generally the general problem of being autistic and the impact that can have on gender identity. But so today I wanted to give a slightly more personal approach. Can't give an approach, but forgot what I wanted to say. To that topic, since I do sort of personally identify with that term, although it's more like it's not really a gender identity as you would expect it for me. It's more like a descriptor to tell you why I can't tell you, why I can't give you like more proper one, if you can say that. Depends on your philosophical standpoint on that question. But yeah, why is that so difficult to give one? Well, sort of gender identity doesn't really seem to be a topic for most people, unless they're transgender, I guess. Most people who are not, never, I don't have that experience, but don't really think about their gender identity all too much, and it's just sort of a very clear thing for them apparently, which is fascinating. And then if you're transgender, usually sort of the first thing that comes up, and the thing that sort of in a lot of ways defines that and defines why being transgender is a thing for many people, is gender dysphoria, which for those that are not that familiar with that topic, describes the experience of being very, very uncomfortable with being gendered with a certain gender. Is that a sufficient explanation? Yeah, and it is usually, well, maybe to explain a bit more, it's usually described as quite an extreme feeling, which can lead to depression and anxiety and all sort of fun, not fun, things like that. So yeah, it's not exactly pleasant. But that sort of seems the main way, at least medically, that's usually, as far as I'm aware, the way being transgender is described, although there's other descriptions, but that would go too much into detail. That would derail this video a little bit too much, so I'm not going to get into that too much. You're welcome to look it up. The problem is sort of knowing in any way whether you're determining your gender by whether gender dysphoria is present for any sort of gender or not, or whatever. There's sort of two, well, maybe three problems that can influence that when you're autistic, or for least that influence that for me, since this is supposed to be a more personal approach video idea. So first of all, there's a problem with which I think quite a few autistic people experience to various degrees, because it is also a continuum, is alexithymia. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Which basically means that you have trouble telling or describing how you feel. And obviously, at least gender dysphoria is a feeling, so if you can't properly describe or even just generally can't tell how you're feeling, which is a generally autistic thing, when you might have a problem in determining certain things. And well, if you can't tell, like, you're anxious because you have a big presentation tomorrow or something like that, then how are you supposed to, tell things that are a lot less clear and have a lot less clear causes sometimes? And that doesn't necessarily mean that, certain feelings or mental reactions or whatever you want to call them aren't necessarily present. You just can't recognize them. And then on top of that, autism quite often comes with a lot of stress and it's just very stressful to live in a normal world if you're autistic most times. And it can be a bit, I've talked about this before a lot actually, it can be a bit like you're just trying to survive and not actually, you're just trying to get to the next day, because it seems like there's so much stuff happening all the time that you never really can catch up to it. And on top of that, some autistics, for example, can also experience hyper-empathy, where you have too much empathy with everything. And all of that just adds to this stress. And so if you're just, that can just bury some things. And if you don't, if you're just trying to get to the next day because there's so many things happening and so many people wanting you to do things, or things that you just have to do, like doing your laundry, and managing all of these things can be very, very difficult. So everything that's not incredibly immediate just sort of gets buried, and we can deal with that another day. And so, because everything is extreme, even though gender dysphoria is supposed to be very extreme, and if everything else is also extreme, then that's just makes things more confusing and makes it easier, because some people get quite good at sort of hiding the fact that things are difficult, that, hiding that isn't really all that difficult either. And it needs to be recognized first. And then on top of that, point 3, gender is a social construct to a varying degree, depending on what kind of philosophy and scientific standpoint you choose to adopt. And it being a social construct, an autistic person with an autistic brain might have difficulty interpreting that, or might interpret it wrong, because it's a social aspect, and obviously we have difficulties with that. So for me, for example, I get it, quite a bit actually, that I realized that my brain has just completely misunderstood a social construct. So I actually misgender people quite a lot, or I genuinely cannot tell which gender this person is. And I know I think everyone experiences that to some degree, but it happens to me a lot, and it used to happen to me a lot more when I was younger. And in cases where really no one else ever even had that idea, my brain just picked other reference points for what it interprets as a certain gender, and those don't necessarily always overlap with everyone else's. And I have the same problem with other sort of more or less socially constructed things where people draw boundaries, like skin color, for example. That has definitely landed me in some awkward situations. Okay, so despite all of these things, what I've just talked about, I at some point did realize that, I experience things that other people do not necessarily seem to experience. Why is that? And well, researching quite extensively for a number of years, which, have not gotten me any closer than I don't know, which, haven't really gotten me any closer than I don't really know, but it's probably not the gender that was assigned to me at birth. And even then, supposing that was not necessarily the case, the prospect of transitioning in any sort of way, even if it's not like very binary, just to, maybe get to a point where dysphoria is not a thing that, on top of everything else, also, makes your day harder than it could be. Well, first of all, talking to people about that at all, and then also, doing stuff about that. On the one hand, of course, it can be a very great experience, but on the other hand, it can also be very kind of scary. Probably for everyone, but especially as an autistic person, because it's change, and change is not can be very anxiety inducing, and it's not necessarily a situation that you usually have a social script ready for. And, well, you know, it's just, to me it is something that I have a lot of difficulty talking about. That maybe that's part of why I make these videos, because I find it very difficult to talk about, and I try to, you know, express that, but it's just very difficult, and I feel like I fail to make that point in every video that I'm trying to make, but I don't know. Yeah, I hope this was somehow entertaining or enlightening, or I don't know, helpful, relatable to someone. And that's probably all I should... Oh, for today I should stop talking. And I will, first of all, if you enjoyed this video, consider, you know, giving it a thumb up. Why do we say thumbs up? It's just one. Anyway, or subscribing if you haven't already, you know. And I will see you tomorrow. Ouch, I hit my leg. With another video. Goodbye.